Let's talk about it. Talk about it. You can be greater.
Yeah, have you been thinking how you been feeling? Have you been searching? Have you decided that you had enough? That you can be greater?
Welcome. My name is Kaama, and this is the Be Greater Moment. I'm excited to have back with me my next guest, world-renowned infectious disease expert, chief medical and science officer at SRS, part of their COVID-19 task force, military veteran, spent 4 years in the United States Army. Thank you so much for your service, Doc. Founder of the Tropical Pathology and Infectious Disease Association. Back with us again, Dr. Lane Rowling. Thank you so much for being with us today, Doc.
Hey, thank you for having me again, and good morning to you, and happy early celebration for the Marine Corps. A shout out to you guys, and tomorrow Veterans Day, and we all get to celebrate together.
Absolutely. It's a big deal for us, and then for us to, recognize the gentlemen and the men and women that came before us on Veterans Day. And, it's an exciting time for 245th birthday of the United States Marine Corps, older than the United States of America, man. So, Doc, as I mentioned in the intro, you've been going from coast to coast. Let's play catch up. Talk to me a little bit about what you've been doing over the last month and a half. There's a lot that has been going on, but, share with us some of the travels, some of the exciting things you've been doing, and then just, what conversations you're having right now.
Well, it's been a whirlwind the last it's been a whirlwind for the last 6 months, but the last month has been pretty intense, from doing MSNBC in New York, and Salt Lake City, Utah, Jacksonville, Florida, the Black News Channel, questions and answers sections in the magazine called the Denver Urban Spectrum, and the conversation I'm having is trying to mitigate and contain this virus and stuff. I had a great meeting about 2 weeks ago with the Jackson, Transportation Authority for Jacksonville, Florida, trying to make sure that they are able to transport people in a efficient manner, but making sure that the customers and the public and their staff is protected. So it's just every day is a new challenge. Every day is a new road, but this is what I was built for, and this is what I'm carrying across this for, is to give people the ability to function in this new norm in the SARS-CoV endemic infection that we have in the world.
Yeah, that's a major task ahead of us. It seems it hasn't lightened up on us. What are you seeing different in November that has changed since March? We went into complete lockdown March 11th, I believe. What is different now than then?
Well, the official lockdown was probably March 17th, 18th worldwide on a global level. But, it's like what I said back in March, that the second wave will be here in October, November, December, January. And you can see absolutely we're definitely in the second wave now, and the cases are going tremendously. We're having 123,000 new cases a day. These death rates going to occur, going to catch up in about 2 more weeks, and that number is going to probably jump up to 300,000. And we're going to have probably another 250,000 Americans die with this disease over the next several months and stuff. So there's an uptake in the disease itself. The virus infection hasn't petered out. It's not going to peter out. It's part of our society now. It's endemic, and the cases are going to just keep going up and stuff. And this is our new course. And so that's why it's very important for people. What I've seen from March 17 to now, I think people in the summertime became more complacent, thought this thing was going away, it was a hoax, etc. And now we know this thing's here to stay. We're going to be in this state for at least until 2022, even with a vaccination. your program. It's not going to change the outcourse, what's going to happen over the next 10 years.
So you just mentioned the vaccination, and we're in the middle of our political elections. There's still things going on with that, and I believe within the last 24 hours, Pfizer has released that they have a working vaccine. Can you talk about that? I mean, we've gone through the summer, through fall, and we're entering that winter time. We're in the middle of the second wave. As you said, the numbers are skyrocketing. And more importantly, the COVID infection within the Black community is 2.6 times higher. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Hospitalization is 4.6 times higher, and the death rate is 2.1 times higher. So the vaccination, not knowing what the clinical trials look like, how can the people actually trust that this vaccination isn't going to have adverse effects in addition to the COVID?
Well, I think with any vaccination, and you're absolutely correct, the numbers that you're citing on the rates for the infection among minorities and stuff is tremendous. And, it's just devastating our population, devastating our society, devastating our culture and stuff. And the point is, folks, is that, even with this Pfizer vaccine, it's really not going to change the outcourse of what's going to happen. This virus is going to do what it's going to do. I'm very hopeful that, that over time we will get a better understanding of this virus. But right now, we're still in the early stages of this virus. And like I've said before, you have to understand this is an RNA virus. And this RNA virus are completely different than a DNA virus, because RNA viruses are much more lethal, much more pathogenic. It has a lot more immunogenic capabilities. And the bottom line, at the end of the day, they're going to have to prove to us that this vaccine works. Yeah, you might have a couple people that you got some results, but is the immunity long term? Do I give you a shot and your immunity lasts for 2 weeks? Do I give you a shot? Is this immunity last for a lifetime? You have to understand this, and I've said this before. You're not going to get one vaccination, folks. You're going to have to get two. And you're hoping that your body can develop what we call affinity maturation. And affinity maturation means that once I inject you with that vaccine, that pathogen, part of the virus, the SARS-CoV virus, that your body builds up memory to make antibodies to neutralize this virus. Well, let me tell you right now, I don't see that happening anytime soon, because just if you know the nature of coronavirus, we have coronavirus infections every year. We all get it, the normal common cold. But the reality is that we don't get conferred immunity or long-term immunity. So I need to make sure before I give my grandchildren, or I start recommending out there to the world how effective this vaccination is, I'm going to wait to see what happens, because we have viruses like dengue, we have viruses like Zika, we have viruses like chikungunya, we have viruses like Ebola, and we still do not have an effective
vaccination, yeah.
Even in the HIV realm. So what makes everybody thinks that all of a sudden you have one of the most immunogenic, infectious virus in the last modern 1,000 years that are affecting people, that all of a sudden in 6-7 months you're going to come up with a vaccination. I have to see it to believe it.
So can you break down, or for in layman terms, the difference between RNA and DNA? Because you had mentioned that this virus is attacking the RNA, correct?
No. What I'm saying is that we have two types of virus. Viruses are categorized into two different agents. You can have a DNA virus, or you can have an RNA. Viruses are two things: DNA and RNA. DNA viruses are much more stable. This is an RNA virus. This is what we call the genetic material. The RNA, when we look at the dogma of DNA, DNA goes to RNA, RNA goes to protein. Well, guess what, folks? When you're dealing with a viral RNA virus, it is already the messenger. It's ready to replicate, and it has immunogenic capabilities, and it doesn't have what we call a polymerase to make sure it corrects the mutations that we all get. This virus does not have that ability to do that, or RNA virus on the whole have a much more higher immunogenic capability. So when they have new viruses are made, they're really new mutants, they're new babies. And so this is a big difference and stuff versus a DNA virus, which is much more stable. A lot of our vaccines that we have, that we have as normal children are based off of DNA technology or DNA genetic material.
That makes a lot of sense. In showing the potency of this virus, how damaging it is to the overall body of those who get infected. I wanted to go ahead.
Absolutely, because you think of something so small. This virus is about 0.1 micrometers, very small. And this virus has the ability, it's about 30,000 kilobases. It's the largest RNA virus on the planet. But this virus has the ability to attach to your cells of your eyes, your nose, your throat, your lungs, your kidneys, your gastrointestinal tract, your coronary arteries, your vessels, and also, they're saying now that, there's a lot of mental illness that people are getting after getting the viral infection. So this virus is a dogma. It is different. And we're going to have to figure out the best biosafety, biosecurity protocols to be able to protect people. And that includes effective treatment and also an effective vaccination if we ever get to one.
Wow. I mean, he said a mouthful. He said a mouthful. And it's great that we're covering this information, because when we turn on, MSNBC or ABC or NBC or whatever, in the recent weeks, the political, the election has taken the front seat of COVID. And even before that, we weren't getting, details. We weren't getting a full understanding. I had a conversation with my kid's doctor, and she said that the infection rate of children is less than 1%. And then the infection rate of the teachers is less than 2%. Yet none of the children are able to go back to school. Has COVID, it's clear that COVID has become a political talking point, but has the health of the people become politicized instead of them?
Sorry, I think you're absolutely right about that, because what's happening is that, the Trump administration, put politics into science. They demonize science from, climate change to, just science itself. We're like the boogeyman. And the reality that we're not the boogeyman, we're the people that turn on the light to get rid of the boogeyman. And in this case, is what you have is that they put politics into it, misinformation. This was a hoax. Drink Clorox, UV radiation. You got people telling people wear a mask one time, don't wear a mask another time, and it's just got awful out there. And what they should have been doing was talking to guys like myself to have the experience in infectious diseases, period. Understanding how diseases are transmitted. What I would have said initially, and I've had a big platform, and I've been saying this, for the last 7 months, is that if they would have got their act together and got on television saying, hey, folks, this is how you protect yourself from this virus. This is the way the virus is transmitted. One, you have a respiratory. Explain a respiratory. The virus can live in the air for 14 minutes and go not 3 feet, 6 feet. The virus can go a mile. If it gets into an air conditioning unit in a nursing home, it can spread. And then what they should have did was teach these folks out there, like I'm doing, is understanding the 7 F's in the transmission of the virus itself. You have face, you have feces, you have fingers, you have flies, you have food, you have foot, and you have formite. And if folks want to understand that, somebody that broke it down like me and you talking says, man, you know what? Feces, Dr. Rowan? Yeah, the virus can live in feces for 35 days. So you need to make sure bathrooms is secure, making sure you have the best antiseptic hand wash. Dr. Rowan, what's a formite? Well, a formite is an inanimate object. Now we know that the virus can live on a cell phone for 28 days, can live on your ATM card. for 28 days. Your money, it can live on your in your bathroom, on the door handle for 28 days. Influenza lives 14 days. Wow, Dr. Rowland, that's great. Dr. Rowland, what about fingers? Well, we know fingers are very nasty. That's why it's very important to keep your fingernails cut and making sure that you wash your hands with an antiseptic hand wash and not using soap. Wow, Dr. Rowland, that's what they should have did. And this is what I've been tasked to do is I call myself the people's doctor because I
Yeah.
worked for 20 years taking care of the most poorest people, the most happiest people, the most people that are inflicted with the worst disease that you can imagine on the planet. I was in the field doing that, and this is my calling to continue to be the doctor for the people. And I like that title, the doctor of the people. Call me Chief. I like that.
I like that too, Chief. You know, absolutely, absolutely, and it's important because a lot of the misinformation has jaded people's critical thinking. First off, I think people are challenged in their critical thought because there's a lot of noise, so much noise, and then they get attacked emotionally. So now they're emotionally invested, so they don't really take the time out to research, to ask questions, to challenge the people that we've put in position. We put them there, but then we get intimidated to actually challenge what it is that they're saying to us critically, not like you said, the boogeyman sitting underneath of the couch and going, play with our ankles. But, I mean, you're wanting to give me this vaccination, or you're telling me to do these different things. What is the true and accurate information that you came to those conclusions to tell me to do these different things or to get these different vaccinations? You had mentioned that, you mentioned the common cold and how the coronavirus is associated with the common cold, and yet we don't have a vaccination for the common cold. So
Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, that is so true. And I want people to understand that, when we talk about when people start talking about coronavirus, you have to realize there's different families of coronavirus. There's cousins of coronavirus. You have an alpha coronavirus family. You have a beta coronavirus family. You have a gamma coronavirus family. And in the alpha coronavirus, there's four coronavirus. And these are the ones that cause the common cold every year, from 229E to NL63. And I can go on and name you the other two. But you had the coronavirus. I've had the coronavirus. Everybody in the world has had the coronavirus, which is a normal cold, which is the second leading cause of the common cold. And then you have the cousins of the alpha, which is a beta coronavirus, in which you find the SARS number 1 in there. You find MERS in that, and then you also find SARS-CoV number 2. And then you have the gamma, which is the cousin of the beta, which is coronavirus that affects animals, birds and stuff. And so you have these different families out there. And so, folks, we get infected every year. We get the common cold caused by the coronavirus. And guess what? There's no long-term conferred immunity. What does that mean? You get exposed, man. Hey, I got exposed by the coronavirus. I'm not going to get the common cold the rest of my life. Well, folks, you're going to get it again because the antibodies wane. And that's why people need to understand that this vaccination is not going to be an all-in solution to the problem. You're going to have to protect yourself. Don't get complacent. Well, we got a vaccine. Well, more than likely, that vaccine, they say it's 90%. I like to see it put to the test worldwide, and we're going to find out. And I don't want to hear any excuses from people talking about a vaccine if it doesn't work. I don't want to hear it because they didn't stick with what we call the basic virology, the biochemistry of virology. Understanding that, you're not talking about 360 million Americans are going to get one shot. You're talking about 360 Americans going to get 2 shots, period. And then if you do not have a uniform vaccination program worldwide, I mean, that kid in Africa and in Nairobi doesn't get the vaccination, he can still affect the rest of the world. If that kid in the jungles of Peru does not get that vaccination, hey, everybody's going to get it again. You might inject some person in the Hamptons in New York that has lots of money, and they refuse to not take that vaccination, and the other 80% of the people get it. That person can start a whole new cycle of infection. So everybody has to be in the boat. If you don't, you're going to have an infection. Same thing with polio. Man, you got to eradicate, you have to inoculate everybody, vaccinate everybody. Because you got one case of polio, man, that can affect thousands of people, start a whole new transmission cycle. So that's why it's very important that people need to sit down like me and you and having a come to Jesus meeting, a fireside. Let's make it happen, but keep it real, but keep it simple so people can understand it. Because if you're right, if people are in this hoax denial, looking toward a boogeyman, and hell, I'm the one turning on the light at night so we can see the boogeyman to save your life. That is what's important, to understand it at a language that everybody can understand. I mean, I don't have 6 degrees for my health. I got 2 doctorate degrees. I got a master's in cellular and molecular biology. I have a BS in microbiology and chemistry and a minor in military science. I did my fellowship in infectious disease was down in Peru, in the Amazon jungle, dealing with real infections and stuff. And my military training from biological and chemical and all that stuff, warfare, I think I have a pretty good understanding of fighting diseases and explaining it to people on their level. And that's very important, that we have to be able to, they talk about community acquired disease. Well, we better have community acquired education for each and every neighborhood.
Facts, Doc. 100% facts. And I mean, going through your resume, you clearly know what you're talking about. And it's important that this information get out there. And that kind of leads me into the transition of power that's taking place, right? You just so eloquently stated the importance of this information getting out there, turning the lights on. And it's clear that under the Trump administration that the right people weren't in position to articulate that information or to even understand the information that they were supposed to be articulating. With Biden possibly coming in, I say possibly because we all know the madness that's happening right now, with his COVID task force, do you see the possibility of this continuing as a political agenda, or do you see his people and bear with me, I'll go through the people that he's identified. And when I see the positions that they've held or the current positions that they hold, for me, being a layperson, I don't see that they have the experience or the expertise in infectious disease. For example, we have Rick Bright. He's the former head of vaccine development at the agency BARDA. So he deals in vaccinations at a company that makes money off of vaccinations. And then you have this other gentleman, and forgive me, I will destroy your name if you ever listen to this, but Alta Guna, he's a former surgeon, or he's a surgeon and the former CEO of Haven. And this is a joint, business venture between JP Morgan Chase and Berkshire Hathaway for Amazon healthcare venture. That doesn't speak infectious disease to me. That says money. That says this is a corporate, group that is bringing healthcare to the company Amazon, and we know how many employees and how many people are involved in that. And then finally, we have Lucia Burrow, a former FDA official, and like yourself, a biodefense specialist. I don't really see, nothing is translating to me that this task force is going to do anything different than the Trump task force. Can you speak on it?
Well, I'm gonna just say this is that I hope I'm going to be a part of their COVID healthcare task force, because I need to be on that healthcare task force, just like I'm on the healthcare task force for the Congressional Black Caucus, and that's just reality. And this
Absolutely.
is the politics in it. But at the end of the day, people don't want to see, some body talking again that don't look like them, and definitely do not have their interests at heart. And I don't want to get back into talking about what happened with the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, and the
Talk about
famous
it.
Mississippi epidemic when they were, cutting and giving black women, sterilizing them in Mississippi and South Carolina. I mean, we can talk about the historical wrongs that this country has done, especially to people of color. Native Americans, Indians. We talk about Mexicans, especially black folks, because we were subhuman to people. People didn't understand our pain. And then you look at the death rate among black infants, and this came out just 3 weeks ago. If you're a black baby born taken care of by a white doctor, you have a three times more likely to die. So you can imagine, you take that, if they have that much empathy for black babies, and you translate that to somebody that look like you and me, we're older, man, our chances are probably 10 times likely to die being taken care of by a white doctor. And this is the inherited systemic racism that we need to understand, from not just from the medical point of view, from the society, global, worldwide. And for me, as a human being, as a professional, and as a humanitarian and a compassionate humanitarian, taking care of folks that don't look like me, do not speak my language, and I'm operating on people's babies that are 3 days old, treating babies for malaria, and operating on people that are paralyzed, and treating Zika patients and rabies, and all the stuff I've done in the jungles for the last 20 years. I have a very good understanding, because I've been in the field. What do we say in the Marines, Army? You got to have the boots on the ground.
100%.
I mean, how can I speak about something I really don't know about? Because, you have to have expertise. I'm not dissing anybody, and I'm not dissing anybody on the planet. That's not my intention and stuff. But the reality is that, there's a reason why in life, if you want to be an accountant, you be an accountant. If you want to be a virologist, you go get a degree in virology. But you don't become an OBGYN doctor like my sister is, who's the chief at our hospital in Baylor in Dallas. And also my sister is an infectious disease person. She'll tell you where'd that come from. So this is part of the disinformation. So when you mention this COVID healthcare task for Biden, well, I hope to be a part of that, because I'm going to be part of the solution to fixing the problem, and not part of the problem, because I deal with science. If you understand the science, you got to know the medicine. For you to know the medicine, you better understand the science. And that's it. There's no politics in that. This virus does not recognize borders or people, doesn't recognize how much money, religion. This virus is killing everybody. Germans, England, Hispanics, Asian people, South American people, Latin, Cuban, it doesn't matter, Democratic Republic, because body bags zip up the same way. So I'm hoping to be part of their COVID healthcare task force. And if I'm not, I'm going to still be the Pied Piper, the guy in the field saving people's lives. And then one thing I would emphasize, for example, is that somebody should have told them folks at the Sturgeon motorcycle event in South Dakota, you shouldn't gather. And these 2,000 people talking about their constitutional rights went from South Dakota and spread that disease all over. Wisconsin, you name it. They took it, they became super spreaders out of their own ignorance. And that is what we have to stop. You're not entitled to do anything. Only thing you're entitled to do is to be a great human being. And you have to make sure you're thinking about the society. We don't let somebody with tuberculosis, multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, gets on an airplane and cough on everybody and walk anywhere they want to go and cough on everybody. No, we will take you and detain you and make you take medication for 9 months. This is the same thing with the SARS-CoV virus. This is not a game. This has killed, hundreds of thousands of people. March, we have one person. Look at it. We're in October. We're in November. 260,000 people died. It's not 240. It's 260. The numbers are always going to be lower because of the political climate that this administration involved in this, and this has killed a lot of people. And you can imagine if Black folks didn't have trust in the system in the first place, the Trump administration just added more distrust into Black people, really not, or socially disadvantaged people really not believing the system because they're lying all the time. So we have to have factual education. Persons like me and you roll up our sleeves that have been there. You can talk about the Marine Corps. I can talk about the Army. I can talk about Airborne. I can talk about Pathfinder. I can talk about jungles. I've been there. I've smelled it. I've seen it. It's a part of who I am. It is the dirt that's in my skin treating patients with all these diseases. It's part of my blood.
Man, that's absolutely amazing. It's interesting as you described the patient or the person with tuberculosis getting on a plane, coughing on everyone, and that takes me back to a scene in Planet of the Apes, the remake, when the doctor was infected and goes to the airport, and then they cut scene, and humanity is wiped out. And if you think about it, you could say that doctor was infected by COVID. I mean, it came from an animal, right? So COVID came from a bat. This disease came from the ape that they were doing these scientific experiments on. And that spread, like you said, with those people in Sturgis, gathering around. They're in their willful ignorance, is what I say. Regardless of my personal views of putting on a mask, regardless of that, if I know that I'm going to go into a populated area of people I don't know what their hygiene behavior is. I don't know if they have elderly people at home that they're taking care of. If I don't know these things, this information is foreign to me. I'm going to put a mask on, go conduct my business, and then go on about my business and take my mask off when I know I'm in an area that is not foreign to me. So if I'm going to go to Sturgis and you want to have a good time, if you want your football back the way that you had it, and you want to go to a stadium of 90,000 people, 70,000 people, our behavior, whether I agree or disagree with the politics, our behavior has to change so that we can usher in that safety, so that we can, get on the other side of the infection rate, right? I mean, I think that's what the end goal is, right?
Well, I think you're absolutely correct about that. And, the reality is that you have to have effective communication based off of reality. And these folks running around in Sturgis motorcycle in South Dakota, I guarantee you they ain't laughing now, because they've gone back and they killed their family members, killed family in their neighborhood, and they have a direct responsibility to that. My role in all this is that I will be a part of the new coalition that Biden is putting together in my little world to continue to promote great information based off of science and medicine, and making sure that I take care of the socially disadvantaged people that got Biden elected to the White House. And that's some Black folks in Georgia, and them Black folks in Detroit, in Philadelphia, in Chicago, and Latin American people in Arizona. This time you're not going to get no free pass. The Democratic Party. It's not, that ball game's over with. You're going to do right, and you're going to have people, and you have to have respect, and you have to have respect for humanity. And at the end of the day, it comes down to people having the best information based off of science. And I'm going to continue to do what I'm going to do. I can't wait to get back into my laboratory and start doing more research and stuff, and looking at the viral replication, and what is the effects in neonatals and newborns with the SARS-CoV virus. You can imagine if people are having mental illness from post-COVID-19 infections. Can you imagine what the effects are going to be on babies born with SARS-CoV virus?
Can you, can you elaborate a little bit more on the mental health effects of COVID and how that's affecting people's minds? I mean, I know, like with my boys, my 4-year-old son is always saying, "Dad, when COVID-19 is over, can we go back to the movies? Dad, can we go ride a horse?" He's 4 and he already is able to see the effects of the coronavirus, the COVID-19 on his little world, his inability to do the things that he enjoyed to do. So I'm interested to hear the actual medical effects that COVID is having on mental health, which is a big deal in our country right now. You know, it's deteriorating. Our mental health is on a decline. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
It's absolutely, and you know, I called it what I called it back in March and April. I called it the pandemic psychosis,
Hmm.
and pandemic psychosis, which means to me, it's a combination of everything. It's the organic effects of disease itself, and it's also the psychological effect of disease itself. We know that people that have gotten this disease and recovered have clinical depression. They have mental fog. They have signs of mental illness after recovering from disease. And this is probably a direct effect of the virus affecting the brain itself, the blood vessels, the organic material of the brain. And then we have what we call the psychological effects of a global pandemic, which is an endemic disease now, where people learn to not to hang out, self-quarantine. You know, human beings by nature are social creatures. We thrive for love, you know, comfort, grouping, social status and stuff. And then all of a sudden now you don't have that anymore. And you're self-quarantining your house. And then you're worried about if the person next to you is infected when you go out into the public. I mean, it affects every part of your life. And on the psychological effect, kids are not going to school anymore. You know, and for some kids, it's, you know, some of the families are good families. Some of the families are very violent families where the school system itself is there you know, utopia to escape that environment. Sexual abuse, you know, domestic violence is going up, secondary to people not working, the stress of the pandemic, you know, hanging around with people you're not used to hanging around all the time. So I wrote about this about 4 years ago when I did a thing with at Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama. Well, I presented a paper on the global impacts of diseases, how the global impact of diseases can change a society, and it does. It causes increased social economic unrest. It's food insecurity, violence. You know, people lose respect for each other. It all comes down to about flight or fight. You know, survival. I remember hurling into the disease pandemic in April. I went to the store and they had people lined up for a long, you know, people lined up to go into the store. And
Yep.
I was buy some milk, man, and a guy cuts right in front of me. He has his guns on his waist. And I'm like looking at this fool, and he cuts and knocked down two old people to go get some toilet paper. I mean,
Wow.
you think about the mentality of that. You know, me, you're a military guy.
We lose them again.
Toilet paper. His mindset.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. We froze there for a second. Yeah. But the mindset in these chaotic moments, it sends people into, again, the emotional response instead of thinking critically about what's going on. And a lot of times these people don't have a plan. So if they don't have a plan in a time of an emergency, a pandemic, a catastrophic event, whether it's man-made or naturally made, that leads to panic.
Yes.
And you're not seeing your neighbor. You're not even seeing your children sometimes in some of these instances. And you talked about, you know, children being put in dangerous situations if they have an abusive home. Their starvation has increased. Suicide has increased. You know, people felt safe or felt comforted with the fact that they didn't have to pay rent initially. We're now in November, and these bill collectors and these landlords, and they're calling in those IOUs, and a lot of people have not even begun to recover. We're still in the middle of the financial pandemic that COVID has created.
Oh, absolutely. And then you look at our healthcare system, and if a society have problems like an onion, what the pandemic's done, the endemic here now is it peeled that onion open, left it wide open. Now you understand that there's healthcare disparities. You understand there's this systemic racism. You understand there's domestic violence. You understand that there's There's discord between people. You understand food insecurity where you got people lined up for miles trying to get food. You got people that, really didn't understand life itself. And now they really have to deal with life itself because this is a life or death situation. And you'll find out if people can understand the stress. So the society is more stressed, and with more stress, you become with more problems. And that's why it's the responsibility of people like yourself and me to articulate a very soft educational message that we're going to get through this. When I was on the Everyday Hero platform, the video for that one, I talked about hope, and we're going to get through this, but we have to get through it through a systematic approach, understanding what we're dealing with, understanding the environment, and we will come up with a solution to a problem. And my responsibility is to be an assistant or help our society and by any means necessary so I can prevent people from dying and saving lives.
That's admirable, Doc. I mean, that's an admirable, and it's divine. I mean, the whole purpose, to have that purpose and to be given the talents to fulfill that purpose, to me, that's divinity. That's something that's God-given. And with that, I feel like it's a saying we have in the Marine Corps. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And what's happening with COVID, it's revealing our weak links in our chain as a society, as a government, and how that government governs its people and its society, from the federal to the state to the local. And we have to strengthen that. And the only way that we'll be able to get through this is together.
If you look at countries like Peru and South America, Africa, these poor countries that were already poor, these guys are going to be 20, 30 years behind the times. They're not going to catch up this time because of our modern world. So you can imagine somebody in Argentina or Costa Rica, and these guys are making $600 a month, and their whole economy, 95% of their economy is based off of tourism. The Caribbean islands, and most of these countries do that. There's no tourism because nobody trusts the system because the system is broke. The country's broke. Mm-hmm. What makes you think that tourists are going to go back to your country? And that is a very, very important part on understanding the have and have nots. And so what we have to do, me and you, especially me as a medical person, is to try to have equality for all people from the top down to the bottom, especially the children.
Sorry about that, guys. Absolutely. It's a global community. We're no longer in a time where the globe is separated. The people are separated. We are connected. The things that we do locally, the things that we do here locally, it affects those people in Venezuela. It affects those people in South Africa. It affects the people in Europe, Eastern Europe, and in Asia. It's all connected. Doc, I really thank you.
Yeah, that's so more important now because I used to teach my students, I still teach that if people didn't realize that a disease that affects a kid in Africa or a disease that affects some kid in the Amazon jungle or some kid in Vietnam has no effect on you here in the United States. Well, we know how diseases can reach out and touch you because of this global highway, this global connection. And so that's why it's important when we start talking about treatment and understanding, mitigating, containing this virus. If you don't take care of that kid, that poor kid in the jungles of the Amazon, or that poor kid in the jungles of the Cameroon, the virus is going to still come back and haunt us. So we have to have fair, equal treatment for all people on the planet as a family.
So with that, Doc, tell us about some of the things that you have coming up, some of the projects that you're involved in that are helping to help the people with the pandemic. Any of the products, any more conferences that you're going to be having, teleconferences that you're going to be having?
Well, I still got, I have lots of programs scheduled from the day I have the NAACP in Southern Illinois University, an hour and a half fireside this afternoon. And I got more programs and stuff. But I think the bottom line at the end of the day, what we try to do is to bring the best technology to help mitigate and contain the virus and stuff. And, we still have that capabilities that, SRS and stuff from, hand desanitizer to actual technology to test. One of the big projects I'm going to be involved now is that I'm going to be running, throughout the country, laboratories that we can test individuals for the SARS-CoV virus by using PCR technology. And that's a game changer versus using antigen or antibody, because PCR is much more effective and stuff. And so these are the projects I still got going on. And if people are still interested, they can still get this technology from us, and they need to get it because, folks, we're going to be in this endemic infection at minimum till 2022, very strong, but it's going to be like this for the next 10 years.
And they can find the products at www.srsinc.com. Is that correct?
They can get we can get the what I call the best antiseptic hand wash that you should place your hand washing from is www.saferhands.us, saferhands.us, saferhands.us, and also get Dr. Rowland's famous, glasses that I wear when I'm airplane so I don't contract the SARS-CoV virus through my eyes.
That's smart. I like those. I'm gonna grab me a pair of those.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, you can get them from our www.saferhands.us, and then, our Proguardium hypochlorous acid solution that, that kills the actual virus itself, and Ebola and influenza, and all the technology from mats and stuff to disinfect people's, the bottom of their shoes. So you can still get this stuff at www.srsproducts.com, srsproducts.com, and people can get this and bring them for your home and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is just for me to continue to educate people, take my virology experience and my infectious disease and break it down to people where people can understand it and stuff. And that's very important, so they have the correct information on understanding how to mitigate and contain the virus and protect themselves to be able to live through this, what we call the new norm, and realize that we're all global humanitarians, every one of us, but we have to find that humanity in ourselves to help other people.
Absolutely. We have to have empathy. I mean, empathy is key. Doc, where can we follow you? What's your social media handles?
Dr. Rowling is Instagram, Dr. Rowling Instagram, and it's Dr. Lane Rowling on my Facebook and stuff. And I hope people join my Dr. Rowling Instagram, because I have all types of interesting stuff, updates, surgeries, etc. Talk about the jungles of Peru. And I hope that some of you folks out there would like to come and travel with me to the jungles of Peru and help me save some people's lives in doing real clinics in the jungles. I'm talking real Indiana Jones type of stuff.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Get your hats, get your ropes, get your boots. Let's go get it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Dr. Rowling, thank you so much for joining me for part 2. I look forward to having another discussion with you here shortly. You heard the man. Go follow him on Instagram. Go see the real life people's doctor as he helps us through this COVID pandemic. You can follow us on Instagram. It's the Be Greater Movement. You can follow me personally on Instagram. It's King Wainwright on Instagram. You can follow us on Facebook. It's the Be Greater Movement on Facebook as well. Remember to like, share, listen, and thank you so much. This has been the Be Greater Moment. All right.